wanted to do a review today on my Quictent greenhouses. I actually have more than one. This is a brand new one that I got this year. It's 10 feet wide by 20 feet long. And over here, I have one of my older ones that's also 10 feet wide by 20 feet long. And the one big thing I want to say about this greenhouse is that you get what you pay for. They're not super cheap, but they're the cheapest option for what I need, and that's why I keep getting them year after year. The green one, which is older, is 4 years old. Now, I used to have another one as well that was 3 years old. Between the two of them, I've had so many parts break that I've had to combine them both to have one functioning greenhouse. So I would say its max lifespan is about 4 years, but about 3 years in, you'll start noticing that things are starting to fall apart. One thing you'll notice is that this tarp, it'll rip. That's just part of being outside in a greenhouse in the wind and all the weather for long periods of time. The main cause I've noticed from the rips are not necessarily the lack of support from these guys, but it's actually too much support from these guys. So you have these rings holding the tarp onto the frame of the greenhouse, and when it gets really windy, this part stays put, but the seam rips and becomes undone. To prevent that from happening in the future, I started using these clips from Home Depot, which cost about $1. So I have those clips going all the way around. I usually put 4 or 5 on the ends, and then I have about 2 or 3 providing some support here. My biggest rip is over here, and I'm going to be fixing this with some greenhouse tape, but again, you can see this guy at one point was held onto this. A really strong wind came and it just ripped it right at the seam, and there we have a rip. So I have some greenhouse tape I'm going to fix that with, but to prevent that in the future, I'll be using these little clips. The other thing I've noticed with these greenhouses, and I've seen other people have similar issues, is that these guys will blow away in the wind if you do not secure them. The way I secure them is I use rebar, I hammer it into the ground, and I tie the frame down with it really nice and snug. I have it on each corner as well as in the middle on each side, and I've found that that does a good job at preventing the entire thing from blowing away in the wind. When it blows away in the wind, it's gonna crumble and get destroyed. These little guys here, they're made of aluminum. I could bend them easy, and I am not very big and not very strong. The welding isn't great. If I were to push this down with my foot to try and get it deeper in the dirt, this would snap off. So that's where most of my damage has come from in my greenhouse, which is why I've had to combine both together. Is basically I would try and push this further into the soil and it would snap, and then it would be useless. Now you'll see there are spots for poles here on the bottom. I do not use poles on the bottom because I grow giant pumpkins, and the vines actually grow all the way out past the greenhouse, and the poles just get in the way. So I don't even bother using the poles on the bottom, but if you want something even more stable, you can absolutely do that. The other issue that I noticed over time, which can happen with anything really, is that these zippers get old. This one's working pretty well, but some of them get stuck, or they like start opening as you're zippering down and they don't zipper all the way. So it's just a combination of not the greatest quality, but also just time out in the sun and time out in the weather. So these things do break down. Be smart about it. Do everything preventative you can to prevent it from breaking down quicker than it should. And as long as you have those expectations, these work great. And again, that's why I just bought a new one, because it does what I need it to do. I'm aware it's only going to last 4 years, and until I can afford a better option, this is what works for me. So I got the greenhouse tape on the worst part, and it looks like it's gonna hold up pretty good. So we'll see how it does. I put it on both sides, both the inside and the outside, so we'll see how it holds up when it starts to get windy. one thing that's been driving me nuts about this greenhouse is that the zipper's broken, and I knew this one was broken, and I opened it up kind of by accident, but I should have known better, and I've probably spent about 20 minutes so far trying to get it to close again. And sometimes if you just angle it the right way, or you do it from one side versus the other side, it'll start working. But yeah, I've been in here for 20 minutes. It's 85 degrees in the greenhouse, and I'm super annoyed. So I'm basically gonna fix this if I can, put some duct tape on it so I never open it again, and then use the other zipper, which is working. This happens after about 2 or 3 years when these greenhouses get old, so this is one thing to be aware of when you get these. So I found a downside to my newer greenhouse, and you can see here there's water pooling on the top, and every time it rains I have to push the water away. And the reason that's happening is because instead of having one support going across in the middle, there's one here and then one on the other side, and then that causes the water to pool like this. And it's super annoying because then I have to like lift it up and let it drain, and I'm often too short to even let it work, so it's just a pain overall. I'll show you my other greenhouse where I do not have this issue. So here on my other greenhouse, you can see that there's just one support here right in the center. So when it rains, the rain falls right off and does not pool. So I definitely like this setup a lot better. If I ever do buy another greenhouse, I will make sure to get one with the support at the top so that the water does not pool in the greenhouse. Another thing I like about this older greenhouse is that the part that goes in the ground, this part is really long, and it actually came out a little bit during a windstorm, but it never came fully out, and this greenhouse never blew away because it had such a deep amount of the stake inside the ground. I'll show you my other greenhouse and show you why that one actually had an issue in the wind. My newer greenhouse almost blew away in a windstorm, and I'll show you why. Because only that much goes in the ground before it hits this T-post right here, so that's barely any amount in the ground, so of course it's going to blow up in the wind. Normally you do have poles that come across there and there. That won't affect it blowing away in the wind, and I don't put anything there in terms of poles because I have my pumpkin vines coming through. But yeah, I do not like this design with barely any bit of the pole in the ground. It blows away really quick in the wind. Ah, no! No!